to the official podcast at contentchampion.com. Join our heroic quest to discover truly epic content marketing. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Loz James.
Hi guys, welcome to session 17 of the Content Champion podcast. Wow, what an epic introduction. I love it. Now I've added this for two reasons. Firstly, because the Content Champion is on a heroic mission to discover truly epic examples of content marketing across the web. And secondly, my new theme tune is in honour of my very special guest. None other than the father of the content marketing movement himself, Joe Pulizzi. Joe is the founder of the Content Marketing Institute, author of Epic Content Marketing and many other best-selling books, and is also an in-demand speaker on the international conference circuit. It's not every day you have someone of Joe's authority and experience to learn from, so I thought this show would be a great opportunity to discuss content marketing trends in 2014 and find out how Joe sees the industry changing in the coming year. Let's dive in. Thanks very much for coming on today, Joe.
No, it's a pleasure. It's always fun talking about content marketing.
Okay, on the show today, I want to get the benefit of your experience regarding content marketing trends in 2014. Before we dive in, however, let's talk about your career in content marketing to date. As founder of the Content Marketing Institute and the author of many industry-leading books, it's fair to say you're a hugely influential figure in the content marketing world. But where did this content marketing journey begin for you? Because I understand you started using the term as far back as 2001.
It's hard to believe that it's caught on quite the way it has. I mean, basically, I started out selling, at the time it was called custom publishing services, and I ran a division within a large publisher called Penton Media in the States. We were the largest independent business-to-business publisher in the United States and ran a group called Penton Custom Media and started to learn that there were brands out there that were trying to tell a story and trying to attract and retain customers with that story, but weren't doing a very good job of it at all. And frankly, didn't even know the basics of how to do that well and how not to talk about your products and services and how to focus on the needs of the customers and subscribers. So, we started to work on custom magazines, custom newsletters, and boy, you know what? I've talked to a number of senior level marketers, and I started to ask them questions and use different terms like branded content, like custom media, custom publishing. And when I use content marketing, that just they seem to like kind of adjust in their chairs a little bit and come a little bit closer to me and say, yeah, no, content marketing, that sounds interesting. And frankly, I mean, marketing folks, we're a paint by numbers crowd. I can say that because I'm a marketer. So you got to keep it pretty simple. And when you say content and marketing, people are like, oh, okay, it's marketing. I must be involved. Content. Oh, yeah, I'm going to use content, not advertising. And so that's a very simple way. And I think that's one of the reasons why the term took off.
So you've been ahead of the curve, and this led on to the foundation of the Content Marketing Institute. How did the company evolve into the market leader it really is today?
Can I answer by saying luck? It was a lot of hard work. We got a fantastic team. It was a lot of hard work. The time and the work we put into it. The original concept of the Content Marketing Institute was like an eHarmony for content marketing or a Match.com for content marketing, where if you were a brand and you needed content services, we were going to match you up with the proper agency or the proper journalist. Actually, it's very similar to a lot of the models that are out today, like a Contently or a NewsCred is doing this. So, we might have had the idea first and they perfected it. It didn't work for us. I don't know if we were ahead of the curve or we just didn't execute it properly, but we were getting a lot of notoriety around using the term content marketing starting in 07, 09. People were talking about us. We started to get a lot of traction online, get found in search and social, but the financial model wasn't working. So what we did is we just did a pivot to the business in 2009 and focused completely on training and education. So we started Content Marketing World, which is our big event. We hold the one in Sydney as well as in Cleveland, Ohio in the States. We do Chief Content Officer Magazine, which is now every other month, sent to 22,000 senior level marketers. It's in digital and print. And then we do consulting for mostly Fortune 1000 enterprises around the world. And making that pivot in 2009, 2010 changed everything that we had. We really started to take off and realized, and I guess maybe I was a little bit naive because I was so far into the industry in 2007, that there were so many companies that didn't get this concept, and the ones that did get it had trouble executing it because of the silo structure, because of our traditional nature toward mass media. And this is it takes a real big cultural change in the organization to do a lot of these things. So we said, let's set up camp and really help these customers do their thing. And since we made that change, it's been a lot it's been a lot better for us and hopefully for our subscribers and customers.
Okay, so it's within that context of that authority and that insider industry knowledge that I want to get stuck into some trend spotting and predictions for the year ahead. Joe, what most excites you in the content marketing world going forward? What's going to surprise, help and delight us in 2014?
Laz, I think we're getting past early adoption phase. If you were to ask me 6 months ago, I would say absolutely this industry is in early adoption phase. Now, this year, even the laggards, even who you would think of as the companies that don't get it, are always behind, are starting to talk about it in their organization. They're starting to think about how do we approach this from a business standpoint. Now, there's a lot of technology companies over here, a lot of the Coca-Colas and the Crafts and the Red Bulls of the world. They're first movers. They're all over this. They've got their structures set. They've got their content centers of excellence. Now everybody else is starting to try to figure this out. So what excites me is we're really starting to see a whole new group of job opportunities, of skills. I mean, the former journalists that were working with media companies are now coming over to brands. More journalists are being hired by brands than by traditional media companies. That excites me. Especially for my journalist friends, because I think they're making more of a living than what they deserved by not getting paid very well on the other side of the house. So I like to see. So there's a large opportunity from a career standpoint that I love, and I think 2014 is going to be the year where you see a lot of amazing success stories, but still a lot of failures in content marketing because it's still for the most part experimental. But at least we're seeing a lot of chief marketing officers, a lot of senior marketers take this thing seriously, and they're looking at it not from a thing where, we should be doing a blog. I think they're looking at it for how can we tell our story better so that we can grow our business? What's the business objectives behind this? And that's what I've been waiting for, Laz. I've been waiting for this whole thing to turn where we're not just saying, we should do it because, we got to be on Twitter, got to be on Facebook to, look, there's an opportunity to communicate directly with our customers. Let's figure out what that opportunity is. Let's figure out what our story is, how that story can be different. And that's kind of what I see for 2014.
Okay, now I guess the mechanisms of this actual process are what a lot of companies, particularly small businesses, find difficult. And I know that your own research that I've been looking into concludes that for many businesses, their main hurdle in content marketing is producing high volumes of varied, top quality content. So what tips can you give us to help with this sort of ongoing concern that they have?
That's a great question. My answer to that would be don't do it.
Okay.
And the reason why is I don't think for most companies, and by the way, there's no silver bullet to this. I talk about this in my book. There's all kinds of different ways to find success, using content to grow your business. One of them is sending out lots of content in lots of different channels and just kind of trying to blast that out there. And I think that that's a failed strategy. It's fool's gold for most companies. The better way to go, especially with the changes that Google's made in their latest Hummingbird algorithm update, we know that quality content means more than anything, and consistently produced quality content. So I would say for anyone listening to this, instead of trying to be everywhere, trying to fill every social channel, I would say focus on a channel that makes the most sense for you and your customers and dominate that channel by producing the best content on a consistent basis for your customers around whatever those needs are that relates to your business. I think that publishing over the last 100 years has proved that is a model that works. I think that being jack of all trades and master of none for content marketing is a failed strategy. And I think that if you look at the greatest media brands of all time, whether you're looking at, you use some from the States, whether you look at Wall Street Journal or New York Times or let's say ESPN or whatever the case is, they all started by communicating in one channel consistently, and then they go multi-platform. So I would say, Laz, that that's the best way to do it. So find your niche in one channel and really dominate that one. Don't go to, oh, I need to be everywhere. But if you're going to do that, if you feel like, oh, I've got to be in these 7 channels, still start by focusing on one that you're really super amazingly good at. And then from there, you can repurpose and imagine that content into, whatever, SlideShare channel, Facebook channel, Twitter, Vine, your blog, whatever the case is. But focus on one, whether that be email or a custom magazine or a consistent blog or a podcast or whatever the case is.
Okay, that's interesting, because a lot of people are pumping out content that's low quality on a daily basis, and they should just step back and say, okay, it's all about quality, and pick that one platform that works and then build out from there.
Well, Laz, I think it's a great point. I would have said that, let's say 4 years ago, 4 years ago, you could have made an impact in certain industries by just slamming out, mediocre content in certain markets, and you could get attention by doing that. That game has ended. That game is not there anymore. So if you are putting a lot of money into quality content that doesn't differentiate your company, it most likely, especially with the way Google has changed their algorithm, they're not going to reward you for that at all. Your customers aren't going to find it interesting. It's not going to differentiate your message at all. It's not going to get you subscribers. So I would say stop producing all that content, and maybe less is more in this case, and focus on content that's going to make an impact.
How do you get that uniqueness now? How do most companies achieve that level of uniqueness for their own brand?
Boy, well, the first thing is creating quality content is hard to do. If it was easy to do, then everybody would be effective. We know right now, according to the research you just talked about, that 4 in 10 companies are seeing some kind of effectiveness with content marketing. That means the majority of companies out there aren't seeing success with content marketing, because creating consistent, amazing information to your customers is not easy to do. If that was the case, everybody would do it. So I think the best thing to do, number one, and I would say that most marketers don't do this, and it's so simple to do. Are you talking to your customers? Are you actually asking them what keeps them up at night? Are you actually asking them what their challenges are? And don't get me wrong, you can use search engine attraction, you can use Google Trends, you can use the great tools that Google has if you're an AdWords customer. You can look at Twitter, you can monitor, you can use a social monitoring tool to find out what your customers are into, what their pain points are. But number one, please talk to your customers. Second, talk to your salespeople, talk to your customer service people. Find out what those pain points are, and let's figure out really where we can be the leading informational expert in the world around a subject matter area. Look at your own company and then take the top 3 or 4 or 5 competitors. For the most part, in every industry I look at when we do a content audit, Laws, what we see is you can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference between any blog post from your site and your competitors. That's a problem. I mean, you look at the greatest brands in the world and how they communicate. When Southwest Airlines, this is a local local for us. Southwest Airlines communicates, you can tell the difference in how they communicate. Coca-Cola, you can tell. Red Bull, for sure, right? You read a piece of Red Bull content, you can certainly tell that's Red Bull content. You don't get that confused with anyone else. But why are we so easy to put out content that's just about the same as everyone else's when we can tell a different story? So I would really, before we create any more content, figure out what that different story is, and that's really based on how you can make an impact on your customers. How can you make their lives better in some way? How can you change their stars in some way? I love the movie Knight's Tale and talk about it all the time. How can you really change your stars for your customers instead of just pumping out content that's going to talk about you, yourself, your products, your services that nobody cares about and what everybody else is doing?
Okay, and you mentioned the platforms that we publish on. Which sort of social media platforms in particular do you see gaining and losing most traction in the next 12 months? Google Plus, that's one that could be a big winner perhaps. Facebook is perhaps losing ground. I mean, lots of people focus on social media, so what should we look out for?
I've thought a lot about this one, and I actually think they'll all be up just because of the adoption curve. When you're saying Facebook will be down, Facebook has, they've got an issue because a lot of their core customer base, at least from the past, which were the teenage crowd, the young adult crowd, seems to be going in different directions. A lot of those are going to Twitter. They're going to new other places. I think you're going to see more easy-to-use apps like your Instagrams, like your Vines, like your Snapchats. They're going to pop up, and we're going to see so much more usage in these new platforms. I would assume there are going to be 2 or 3 new platforms this year, Laz, that we don't even know about right now that are going to pop up and they're going to grow really fast. Because they can just tap into the app infrastructure and people can download it. You get a little bit of good word of mouth going and you're done. The things that interest me for 2014, I'm interested in Vine. I'm interested to see how that one works out. I still like, you know what, I'm not a big fan of Snapchat at all. It definitely doesn't target me. But I'm interested in the fact that brands are starting to spend money on that. There is a certain population of people out there that don't want any history when it comes to social. And so from that standpoint, I think you're going to find a crowd around Snapchat. Google Plus, honestly, Laz, I like Google Plus. I like for the fact, I mean, how can you ignore Google just because of the power that they have?
Sure.
And especially, they just purchased Nest. We see where they're going. If there's any company that has the opportunity to be, the ultimate 1984 Big Brother, it's going to be Google. If maybe it already is Google, then now they're getting into the house with things like Chromecast, with things like Nest. You can't ignore Google Plus. The majority of people, I think, that are involved in Google Plus haven't found success because they haven't committed to it. I think that if you're going to experiment, you've got to commit to it with consistently driven content specific for that channel. The days of us creating a blog post and then, okay, let's spread this out on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. I think those days are going away. I think the days that are coming, how we're getting more mature, is we're going to tell a story. Here's the story we want to tell. And then we've got 7 or 8 channels that we really focus on, and we're going to tell that story differently in each of those channels. I think how we tell that story differently on Google Plus is going to be a key, just like we would tell a different story in email newsletters. The search is so important, Google's place in that. But honestly, Les, I don't know what to do with it. We have some of my friends who swear by Google Plus and they love it, and other ones say it's the biggest waste of time in the world. I guess that leads us to the point where figure out where your customers are hanging out, and wherever they're hanging out and you see an opportunity, those are the social channels we probably should focus on, and the rest, don't worry about it. If your customers are, like if you're a B2B company, honestly, I probably wouldn't be wasting my time on Facebook unless you're looking at some kind of an employee initiative or something like that. Is it Merit's, the big shipping company? They Facebook is great for them. They share a lot of they've got an enthusiast group on Facebook, but the business is done on LinkedIn. So I mean, it depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to do in those channels. And I would say focus on the ones that make the most sense and get rid of the other ones, or don't worry about them. You don't have to be in every channel.
Okay, so you're talking about, you mentioned there, telling your brand story, and obviously people tell stories, so we're on to employees. And one of the things that really interests me in content marketing is social media advocacy. Is this a growth area, do you see, coming in the next year, and how can businesses successfully leverage this?
Oh, I think it can be. I mean, I think it's proven that it can be, that because we can communicate directly with our customers, because we can get a group of people behind our cause in some way, pretty quickly in some cases, it works. How I would say a business can leverage this and to really get a following on social media is, the first thing is create some kind of an influencer list. Most businesses that we talk to don't have one. Well, what is an influencer list? Create a list of where your customers are hanging out on the web. Who are these people? Are they bloggers? Are they media companies? Are they other influentials in some way? Are they sometimes competitors? Make a list of those. Are they talking about your business, what's important, what you want to advocate? Get those people down. Some of those people could be customers. Some of them are just, I would say, an advocate in some cases is a customer. Influencers usually aren't. Influencer usually has an audience of some kind. That's what I want, because we want to build an audience with social media if we can. So first of all, get that list. And then what we've got to do is really create a process of sharing their content that's relevant to what we want to advocate for. Right, whatever it's around something that's important to us, or something that's around where we want to be the leading expert. I use this social media process called social media 411. It's basically, it means of let's take Twitter, for example. So for every 6 tweets, 4 of those tweets are going to come from that influencer group. I'm going to share other people's content to get on their radar and try to build relationships with them. One of those is going to be, my piece of content marketing, my original blog post, my podcast, whatever. And one can be a salesy type of tweet, type of message. It could be for, we won customer service program of the year or something about my product or service. If usually you've got product marketing barking down your throat in social media, so you have to do something salesy. That's fine. You can do that. But I would say it doesn't matter what the exact numbers are. So if you just say 411, 4 of those 6, I'm telling you right now that 60 to 70% of those tweets should come from your influencer group. If you want to create relationships, once you build those relationships, then you can really move forward and persuade people, because then you're building your audience and you're getting people to move with you. If you're doing it by yourself, it's very, very hard to do that, because then you're really focusing on, oh my gosh, I've got to have this most amazing content, and you don't have the distribution associated with it. Get the distribution, get the audience first, and you need to do that by building relationships with influencers on social first.
You're listening to the Content Champion Podcast, showcasing the best content marketing strategies across the web.
We're back with Joe Pulizzi, picking up our conversation on companies' use of social media. I recently found this piece of software called Everyone's Social, I think it was, that helps your employees and your company become advocates for your brand. Do you see a growth in this kind of software in helping businesses to be more successful on social media?
I think so. I mean, to be honest, there's 5 new software companies created every day around the content marketing services industry. And I'm not against it. It's getting crazy. It's getting complicated. I am positive that for everything that you want to do in content marketing or social media, there's probably a technology out there that'll help you be more effective. The problem that I see, Laz, is that we're running to technology before we have a strategy. So what we know for the most part about brands and creating content and distributing content is most of them don't even have a formal strategy linked to their business objectives before they do any of this. And what happens then is they go out and pick a technology, let's say like reputation management tool or a marketing automation tool or a workflow tool, which there's a lot of great ones out there, but they go and they pay money for this technology before they even have a strategy. So I would just say it's great. Yes, absolutely agree with you. There's plenty of that stuff that'll help you, build all kinds of relationships with employees, with customers, with whoever. But let's get a strategy first for why this makes sense for your business. And then once we do that, we can figure out if there's technology out there that can help us facilitate that strategy.
It's amazing because I've been copywriting for 15 years. And before that, I was a journalist, a radio journalist. And when you go to clients and say, okay, where's this content going? They've usually come to you last in the process and they still don't have a clue at that stage of the process. It really is worrying. It's alarm bells ringing that there's that sort of lack of, as you say, strategy as to who they're talking to, what type of content will be sufficient to talk to them and where that's going to go.
It's such a great point. And even there's a big fad going on right now, as you know, around native advertising, or the idea that we can advertise with content. And in a lot of cases that is in stream. So I'm looking at my mobile device on Twitter, and of course we see the sponsored tweets, and usually those sponsored tweets point to content instead of advertising. I see what you just said is happening with native advertising. I say, oh my gosh, I can go back to advertising again. I don't need a content strategy. I'm going to interrupt them, but I'm going to interrupt them through content, but they don't really have a strategy behind it. That content tends to be lackluster. And then what happens is once they get all the traffic around that they're paying for around all this, this content promotion, they don't know what to do with it. There's not a next step. Are we trying to build subscribers with this? What do we want them to do? Do we want them to take some kind of an action besides buy our product, which most of it is buy the product? Well, 2% of those people are going to be ready to buy. Maybe 98% aren't. What do we do then? Is it just done? Was it a wasted initiative? In most cases, it was. So, or unless you're just doing it for awareness, which I think there are better goals than awareness when you're looking at content marketing, even though that's always the number one goal. You're absolutely right. So I'd say if you're going to get into anything, just stop for a second and say, does this soup to nuts, are we going to follow this thing all the way through somebody buying, and then after buying, what are they going to do, and look at how you're going to tell that story all the way through, and then we can plug in that technology. And that if I had a wish, laws for 2014, it would be that everyone that's creating all this content would just stop for 1 second, create a basic, simple strategy, even if it was on a cocktail napkin, and then move forward.
Okay, so we need to go back to our editorial calendars, and even if we just map out the next 6 months worth of blog posts and who they're going to be for and why we're writing to them and what we're writing and what we're offering, that's better than nothing.
Well, you know, and I love that advice. I mean, here's a simple one for social media channels. Write in on the left-hand side of a piece of paper or spreadsheet, whatever, just list all the channels that you create content for. Facebook, Twitter, our blog, email newsletter, employee newsletter, custom magazine, webinar, podcast, just list them all. And then on the top, just put why ? And then you need to know as a marketer why you are in each one of those channels. I guarantee you, almost every company that does this, for the most part, they don't know why they're in the majority of their channels. They really don't have a real deep why they're in it from a business standpoint. A lot of it has been experimental. A lot of things have gone out through the years, and like email newsletter, somebody lost their way. They don't know why they're doing it anymore. Custom magazine, same thing. And it's natural. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just there's a better way to do it. So figure out why you're on Facebook, why you're on Twitter, why you're on Instagram, all those things. And then once you figure out the why, then you could do all the great things you're talking about. Then we can, build a content marketing mission around that. Then we can build our editorial calendar around that. Then we can figure out, okay, well then how are we going to distribute this? Are we going to use paid versus organic? How are we going to leverage employees? Then you start asking all these questions, and then it makes a lot more sense. But you do have to put in at least a few minutes of work beforehand.
And I was talking about this with Jim Tobin, basically saying that if your marketing isn't working anyway, just changing to digital channels isn't going to help. You need to go back to that, as you're saying, that the core problem with what you're doing.
I'm not going to blame it all on social media, but in a lot of cases, we've rushed to social media so much, we've just forgot how to market. This is the stuff that I go around talking about, Laz, is usually just marketing 101 stuff related to creating content. And for some reason, it seems so, and it is, by the way, it is different. Creating a content marketing organization, or basically a publishing environment, is a lot different than the way we've structured it for years with PR, corporate comm, marketing, and all the different silos we have in the organization. But it's not rocket science. It's not incredibly hard. Every company, no matter what size, whatever resources, can do it. And it's like we're almost so impatient. I would rather be patient, more thoughtful, and realize that this is a real opportunity for us to differentiate ourselves with our customers. And if we're going to do this, let's do it the right way.
Okay, now you've touched on this already, but you are quoted as saying that at least 3 Fortune 500 brands will hire a chief content officer in the coming year. Do you think this is an admission by big business, really, that content marketing is going to be adopted on a company-wide basis? Is it, as you say, being taken more seriously in that regard?
Absolutely. It's funny, lads. I think that we're probably 2 years ahead right now where I thought we would be at this point.
Okay.
I never thought the adoption would happen this fast. I mean, if I just look at where we were in 2007 to where we are 7 years later, this has happened so fast. I mean, the term has just taken off. Everybody sort of accepted it as the term for the industry. We've got more job titles going on than ever before. We have more larger brands contacting us saying we're creating a content center of excellence in our organization. We're creating a new department. We've got all kinds of job titles going on. Now, whether they call it a chief content officer, by the way, Petco, which is one of the largest pet supplies companies in the world, Petco just recently hired a chief content officer. Netflix has a chief content officer. Microsoft has a chief storyteller. I don't know if the title is going to be chief content officer, but I can pretty much guarantee you that a good number of large businesses will have somebody overseeing this role, because it is awfully complicated in a big organization, especially when you have all this silo. Because be honest, look at all your silos in your organization. Look at PR, look at marketing in general, look at IT, look at HR. You have people creating lots of content in every one of those silos. It can get awfully messy. And if you don't have anybody organizing some kind of a strategy within those silos, what happens is every one of those silos is telling a different story. You've got social media, and I've seen this firsthand, and it's scary. You've got people creating content for the email channel that don't talk to any of the people creating content for the social media channel. I would say that is the rule and not the exception. That's scary if you're a brand leader. If you're a chief marketing officer and your content creators aren't talking to each other, that's a problem. So that's why you have companies like a Kraft. They came together and created, a content center of excellence, similar to the way that, Red Bull does with Red Bull Media House, or Coca-Cola does with their content center of excellence, just to get everybody on the same page, and then to work with those product divisions and work with those different silos so they get everybody on the same page and create sort of content ambassadors in each one of those silos.
So as an extension of that, in-house training and the tools that go with that, which we've also talked about, that's going to be a big thing in the coming few years, really. How these, these chief content officers bring everyone together and train their teams to be more effective with content marketing.
Training is probably along with, real organizational change management are going to be the biggest issues. When I talk to chief marketing officers at big brands, they say the biggest problem they have is just fostering this change. I talked to a chief marketing officer yesterday, one of the top 100 companies in the world, about this yesterday, and he was telling me that the biggest issue that they had in rolling out their content marketing program or thinking, which they've been doing for the last 3 years, was just because it's so different, it feels so different, and it looks so different than anything else they've ever done before, and just getting people to adopt a different process when you have years and years of history around a different process is tough to do, especially in a large organization. Okay, so let's say that 2014 is in essence the start of this for the majority of these companies. You're going to see a couple years of real growing pains around this. You're going to see a lot of massive failures. You're going to see some successes. And this is just a matter of you're seeing the evolution of the marketing department look and feel more like a publishing environment. That's a big change. How many articles have you read that says we're now all media companies now? Well, we can be all media companies, but most brands aren't set up for it like a Red Bull has actually set themselves up with an internal media company. Most companies haven't done that yet. Kraft has done it. Coca-Cola is doing it. Procter & Gamble does it in different divisions, but not all of them. So it's just trying to figure out how this is going to work. So it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be extremely messy at the same time.
Playing devil's advocate for a minute,
yeah.
A lot of the problem with the uptake company-wide in terms of change management with content marketing is perhaps an inability or a misunderstanding about how you can measure the effectiveness of your campaigns. What's on the horizon to help us in this regard? Because I know it's a big problem for a lot of companies.
Let's just go back and look at a little bit of history with this. So this is, content marketing as a discipline is over 100 years old. It's been going on forever in every channel you can think of. So now we're getting into 2014 and we're looking at how are we going to measure this. You've always been able to measure it. It's easier to measure content marketing today because we have so much more data. There's two problems why most brands are having trouble measuring it. The number one problem by far is a lack of patience. Number one problem. You're not, and that's the one issue. Like, I don't call content marketing a campaign because a campaign means that there's a stop date. If you create a content marketing program, you're saying that content marketing program is going to go on forever. You're talking about an ongoing magazine, a newsletter, a podcast, a blog, or whatever it ends up being. You don't stop doing those. You don't create a relationship with your customers through amazing content and then say one day, "Oh, our campaign's done. We've stopped. We're gonna do something else." And that's why most brands are horrible at this, because they have a campaign mentality where they just say, "Okay, we're gonna go on and we're gonna sell all these products now. We're gonna talk about it in this way. We're gonna stop doing all that, fostering and relationship building through this channel, and we're gonna go over here." Are you kidding me? Publishers and media companies, the greatest media companies of all time, never do that. I've been working in publishing for over 15 years now, and when we do a plan, we do a 3-year plan. 3-year plan around that. I mean, how would you go into a brand and say, "Okay, we're going to have some results, but it's going to take me 3 years to get there"? It would get you fired, most likely. Right? Nobody's patient enough for that. But we've got to at least have the patience of 6 months, 12 months to really see. Now, the key performance indicator that I think that most brands don't look at and should is the subscriber. I see all kinds of content being created in all different channels, but we're not trying to build an audience. I mean, our goal should be to build an audience, to create subscribers in whatever channel that we're trying to create content for, and then figure out, and this can be measured, relatively easy, is what's the difference between my subscribers, or those people that engage in my content, versus those that don't. That's the ROI, right? What is that for you? You got to find that out. It could be those people buy more. Maybe they close faster. Maybe they talk about our products more. Maybe they stay longer. Whatever it is, right? What is the difference between those that engage in your content versus those that don't? What I want to know with my content is it increasing my revenue in some way? Is it saving me costs in some way? Or is it creating happier customers? If you talk to a chief marketing officer, those are the only three things they know. They don't want to see a Google Analytics chart. They want to see the answers to those three questions: sales, cost savings, or happier customers. Now, you can tell that story, but you can't tell that story right away. You can't do it with a 3-month or 6-month campaign. You can almost invariably do it in a 12-month cycle, and over that you definitely can. And you can have quick wins, and that's why we advocate, create a pilot off of this stuff. Create a 6-month pilot. What is your objective for your business? What's the content marketing mission? What's the channel? What's the editorial calendar going to look like? How is this thing going to play out? At the end of the day, what's different about our business so that we know that this thing worked? And then after 6 months, you can hit a single, you can get things going, you can get some buy-in in the organization, and then you can put more resources behind that content marketing program. So I would just say, I've been in this business so long, we always, when I sold content, we always had to have some kind of an ROI metric, some kind of a measurement program for this done, but most of the time it was because of lack of patience that we didn't get it done.
So really, with all the noise out there, all the changes to, you've mentioned the Google changes to the algorithm, with SEO not being as easy as it once was perhaps, we really are and should be focusing on creating our own tribes, like you say, our own engaged tribes that then we can measure the response from. And that really, when you boil it down to it, is quite simple once you start doing it.
It's incredibly simple. And it's just like, at the end of the day, and by the way, I'm not an advertising hater. We still use advertising. There's a role for advertising. There's a role for PR. There's a role for all these things that we've been using. This is not, you don't go do content marketing in place of something else. I believe content marketing can help those things actually be more effective, but that's besides the point. Don't we really want at the end of the day to not to have to advertise? To not to have to engage in traditional PR? We do because we have to, because we don't have direct connections with our customers. If you and I as a business, if we had direct connections, we had opt-in, subscription, permission, whatever you want to call it, with all of our customers, would there be a need to advertise? I don't think there would be. If we started fresh today, we had no history of advertising at all, and we said, okay, we've set up shop, we have all the tools we have right now, how are we going to go to market? Wouldn't the first thing be, well, let's create some long-term connections. Let's first make them aware of what we do, and then hopefully they'll sign up for some really good stuff that we can send them, position ourselves as the expert, and get them as ongoing subscribers to our content. And then once we do that, then we can sell them some stuff. It seems to me like that would be the way that we would go, but for some reason we think about it in campaigns, we think about it in interruption, we think about how can we get something going today or this week, when if we just were a little bit more patient with our content and said, boy, what's our goal? We want to create long-term relationships with our customers so that we can be a viable business over time and really make an impact in the world. I think the best way to do that is to, like you say, create your own tribe. And to do that, they have to subscribe to your content. That means it has to be consistent, it has to be done over the time, and it has to be truly valuable to them, truly helpful. So if it's just like everybody else's content, you're not going to create those tribes.
But it's a great point you made earlier about how people are perhaps getting content marketing wrong. They are using interruption advertising techniques and interrupting people with a piece of content marketing that doesn't have a call to action with it. So it is quite nuts in that respect. The two don't necessarily mix, the old school and the content marketing approach, but I guess that's something people need to address as well, because that is just obviously a waste of money.
Well, I have no problem with the rent-to-own strategy. IBM, companies like IBM have been doing it for years where they have some really amazing content. They want to get subscribers to that content. They want to create long-term connections, and they leverage they leverage native advertising outlets. They leverage banner ads. They leverage advertising online to drive people there. But there's a purpose. They want people to sign up to get those regular reports that they don't have right now so they can make those people long-term subscribers with the odds. And they're doing, I mean, this is IBM, so I would put pretty good money that it's working for them, that over time those people end up buying. But first, what they're doing is they're not buying the product. They're raising their hand saying, yes, I would like IBM's content on a regular basis. A lot of us think that, oh my God, that's sales, that's market. Yes, it's the greatest sales tool of all time. It's amazing information. I'm going to send them amazing information and use all that advertising and use all that stuff. But at the end goal is I want that direct connection.
So let's take a step back. Let's look at the whole of 2014, the content marketing industry as a whole. What one thing do you see happening in the next year that will perhaps absolutely amaze us and completely blow us away?
I've been predicting this for many years. And so now I'm saying that 2014 will be the year it will actually happen. I think that you will start to see this year a number of companies, non-media companies, buy media companies this year. I think it will. I think you'll see. I'm predicting that Microsoft will actually buy two. For whatever reason, I think that they're going to start to do it. They're going to start to buy media companies. If you've noticed, Yahoo has really positioned themselves as a media company now. They will get bought, in my opinion, by somebody, and it probably will be Google if I had to guess. Those are the things we're going to start seeing. So more brands will say, look, I can build it like Kraft and Coca-Cola are doing, or I can go out and buy it. And I don't see a problem with that. If there is a media company out there that has subscribers, that has a real niche, that has a content factory built, that has a relationship with those subscribers, it's pretty darn good, that fits with my business model, I can absolutely see where even small companies can buy small media companies, small blogs. So I guess I would recommend, and I think you're going to see a lot of it start to happen in 2014 and really start to move in 2015, because it's not easy to do this, as we talked about. So if you want instantaneous results, with a lot of brands are impatient, they might say, look, I'm not going to wait to get 30,000 subscribers. I'm going to go and buy that company. And there's a precedent for this. Adorama, photo supplies company, they bought JPG magazine back in 2009. Google's bought Frommer's. They bought Zagat in the travel tourism industry. This is happening. It just hasn't happened a lot. I think you're going to see a ton of it start to happen in 2014. So that's my prediction. I think it's absolutely viable, and it's something we're looking at as well. And I think every smart company should be looking at this. And if you're not going to buy it, at least do joint ventures with these companies, because if there's, figure out where your customers at, where your subscribers at right now, and you could say, okay, I can go build it naturally, take some time to do that, a lot of money, investment, or I can go buy it right now.
Well, that's an amazing prediction. You heard it here first, folks. So we'll keep our eye on that and see what happens. Joe, look, thank you very much indeed for your time today. Great interview, lots of great strategy tips, and just a great look ahead to what's coming in the content marketing industry. Could you remind us all where we can find you online and where we can access some of your content marketing books? Because I did a post on Content Champion and your books were very popular. Oh,
thank you, sir. I appreciate all the support. You can get my latest book, Epic Content Marketing, at epiccontentmarketing.com. You can find me online at Joe Pulizzi on Twitter. The business site is contentmarketinginstitute.com, and then all the events we do, contentmarketingworld.com, or the Sydney event is late March 2014, and the United States, the big international event where we'll have well over 2,000 delegates from 50 countries this year. That will be in Cleveland in September.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
Okay, this is what I call the PS question. Could you please, Joe, share one advanced content marketing strategy with my listeners, something they could take away and use today?
Laz, I don't think this is advanced, but I think it's incredibly useful, because a lot of the question that we get is, how do I sell this internally? what makes good content and what doesn't. And a lot of times you have marketing people that aren't journalists, that don't have a writing background, that don't really understand what good quality is, but maybe they do when they see it or they engage in it. So I've been doing this little activity for a long time. It's worked in every company we've used it with, and it's fun to do, and it's sort of eye-opening, and it's called a visual content audit. And the way that this works, Laz, is you basically go and you print out all your content that you have, or samples of all your content. Print out a couple of your blog posts, print out your white papers, print out some of your Twitter posts and Facebook posts, your email newsletter, some of your web content. Print it all out and spread it out on a boardroom table and get your marketing team around that and just start engaging in it. What you will find, and we found it every time, what you find out is that, oh my God, our content is horrible. And it's really a wake-up call, because in a lot of cases we think, oh, we're doing content marketing. Oh yeah, we do e-newsletters, we do blog posts, we do all this stuff. And then you realize, oh my gosh, one, we're talking about our products and services too much. Two, this isn't helpful to anybody. Why would anybody want to subscribe to this content? And so, and I think we need to tell ourselves, and it sort of is the first step to get us to go to a strategy, because if you don't first understand you have a pain point, you're probably not going to do any of this stuff. So you've got to realize that, yeah, maybe our content isn't so good after all. And if you have a chief marketing officer that you can't convince, it's a good way to say, look, this is what we're doing now, and this is why we're not seeing any results. So we need to really take a step back. So I would recommend doing that visual content audit, even if you think you're doing a great job, because it really opens your eyes to the kind of content you're really creating for your customers.
Well, that's a fantastic strategy, Joe. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for a great interview. Love what you're doing at Content Marketing Institute. I'm on your list. Some great information comes through that. And I wish you all the best with everything you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Same here. And thanks for all the support. Really appreciate it.
So there we have it, folks. That was session 17 of the Content Champion podcast. Thanks so much to Joe Pulizzi of the Content Marketing Institute for a fascinating and illuminating interview. You can find this podcast on contentchampion.com, Stitcher Radio, the BlackBerry Network, and also on iTunes. And if you like what I'm doing, please leave me a review. But until next time...
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the Content Champion.